Laurel strolled down the sidewalk beside Conroy Road on her way to work at Starbucks inside the mall at Millennia. By this time next month, she'd need to find a ride, or else she'd be such a sweaty mess when she got to work that she wouldn't be fit to serve food or drinks to anyone. She glanced at the electrical utility box on the corner of Conroy and Orlando Vineland that featured the poster of the missing blonde girl, the one whose bright smile told the world she'd had her whole life ahead of her. Pretty girls always got posters when they went missing. Laurel knew she wasn't pretty enough to warrant a poster if she ever went missing. This one was peeling around the edges, and faded streaks ran through the middle. She'd been looking at it for the last year, ever since she'd arrived in town, and it must have been up there for several years before that. And still the girl hadn't been found. When Laurel had stepped off the bus at the Greyhound station, she'd been tired and dirty from 2 days on the bus down from Michigan. She wore a retro Mickey Mouse t-shirt that marked her as either a tourist or as a brand spanking new in-town resident. Ever since the family vacation when she was 7, when she'd filled her pink autograph book with Disney character signatures, she'd dreamed of working at the happiest place on earth. That first day, Orlando seemed happy and friendly enough. A stranger even complimented the full-color tattoo of Tinkerbell on her ankle as she sat in the station, waiting for her friend Allison to finish in the bathroom. She thought the compliment might lead to something more. A flirty conversation, perhaps, and that maybe the man would ask her out on a date. But he'd quickly turned his attention to a busty brunette bursting out of her half-zipped magic jacket, a tattoo of stars slinking up her shoulder and up her long neck, disappearing behind her beautiful hair. Very pretty, he told the brunette, and Laurel was forgotten. And soon after, Laurel had learned that she wasn't pretty enough or talented enough to get her dream job as a Disney face character either. Her dark, curly, frizzy hair, round face, and size 14 frame meant she couldn't be Alice in Wonderland, even with the help of a blonde wig. She didn't have the porcelain skin and green eyes to go with Ariel's red mermaid wig, and she would never be Cinderella. She didn't have that princess quality, part magical sweetness that children noticed, and part innocent sex appeal that children didn't notice, but adults did. All the voice and dance lessons she'd taken and all the lead roles she'd won in school musicals couldn't change these facts. Auditions were held in a banquet room at a Disney hotel with a panel of 6 judges. They were only looking for non-singing versions of the characters, Alice's and Ariel's and Snow White's, to walk in parades, sign autographs, and show up at character breakfasts. Laurel, along with Allison and 10 other girls, were put through their paces, performing basic dance moves, walking gracefully, and speaking in character. They'd even put wigs on so judges could check their look. Laurel had thought for a moment, as Snow White's trademark black bob with the red ribbon was placed on her head, that she had the role, but they chose 2 others instead. "They're so picky," she'd complained to Allison later that afternoon as she sat on the floor of their apartment, picking at the cheap beige carpet. "It's the Tinkerbell on my ankle. The costume won't hide it." "The girl in the blue leotard and the tiny one with the dimples were really good," Allison said. She was flopped on the futon couch and dangled her legs over the arm. "You know the spots are limited. They always look for standouts, girls who are special, which we are not." "You were always such a brutal realist," Laurel said. "I'm the one always hoping for magic," she thought, but kept that to herself. "Well, I'm going to apply for one of the costume characters," Allison said. "I'm tall enough for Tigger." And she got the part. She enjoyed interacting with park visitors and didn't mind sweating her ass off in that costume, enduring kids who shoved her, poked her, and tried to push her over. But Laurel wasn't going back. One Disney audition had been enough. She crossed Orlando Vineland, dodging traffic and heading toward the bridge over I-4, which would lead her to the mall at Millennia. On the corner opposite, faux animals from Noah's Ark, 2 stiff-necked giraffes, and a too small adult elephant with its miniature calf peered through the screen of palm trees surrounding the Holy Land Experience. A biblical theme park, the Holy Land Experience presented spectacles like the flood and Jonah and the whale and reenacted the life of Jesus. But Laurel wasn't about to audition there. She wasn't holy enough to portray a biblical figure. Maybe an Old Testament sinner, a peasant in a crowd scene, but certainly no one exotic or complicated like Bathsheba or Jezebel. She was working an afternoon shift, and the mall was in full Saturday mode. The parking lot was packed with oversized SUVs. Bright sun poured in through the glass ceiling, and music thrummed and bounced off store windows and the marble-tiled floor. Shopper tourists careened in every direction, and Laurel had to dodge a 5-year-old girl in a Minnie Mouse hat to avoid being tripped. Millennia had 2 Starbucks, and she worked in the one upstairs by the food court. It was the busier store and had a full glass window, which made it much better for playing tourist tag. This was a game in which employees scored points for correctly identifying where shopper tourists were from. Men with close-cropped hair sporting Manchester United football jerseys were easily pegged as British, only 3 points. Women in high wedge heels with pants so tight they appeared painted on were identified as Brazilian, a solid 5 points. And men wearing loose, silky Tommy Bahama shirts over their beer bellies were tagged as Midwesterners, 8 points, if the exact state could be verified. As Laurel cruised toward her Starbucks, Keith, her manager, caught her out front and asked her to sit at one of the food court tables. "Your promotion to assistant manager has been approved," he said. "Are you ready to take it?" His smile encouraged her to say yes, as it would make his life easier. "You're responsible, organized, and you get along well with other employees." Laurel had continued to think of this job as temporary, but she was indeed good at it, and she was flattered, and she needed the extra money. "Yes, I'll take it," she said, smiling back at Keith. Over his shoulder, she could see a tall, blonde couple walking by. Their 2 lanky, handsome, blonder children trailing after them. Norwegians, she thought, or Dutch. Definitely Dutch. 15 points.